Beyond the Gates spoilers for Friday, October 3, 2025 teases that Dani leaves Bill utterly bewildered when she confesses she still harbors feelings for him, despite being married to Andre. For Bill, this confession cuts through the careful emotional distance he had tried to build after their separation. He thought Dani had closed that chapter of her life the way he tried to close his, but now her words claw at old scars and stir the embers of something he thought had long gone cold. For Dani, the truth is heavier than she can carry in silence. Her marriage to Andre is already cracking at its fragile seams. And the truth is she can't shake her dependency on her ex-husband. She finds herself replaying their shared history, not as moments buried, but as an unfinished script demanding new scenes. That dangerous longing, mixed with the sharp regret of her rushed vows with Andre, creates a storm she doesn't know how to quiet. Andre and Dani both know they entered their marriage on shaky ground. Neither of them is blind to the truth. It was too fast, too impulsive. A performance masquerading as love. Andre feels it in the silence between their conversations, the forced laughter that doesn't echo as it should, the moments when Dani's eyes linger elsewhere. Dani, too, recognizes the hollowness in their bond, though she forces herself to pretend it's solid for the sake of appearances. They share kisses and smiles that feel like masks. But even those masks can't hide what lurks beneath. It's not simply dissatisfaction. It's the growing realization that they've built a life together on sand, and the tide is beginning to come in. The cracks widen when Dani begins lying to Andre. At first, the lies are small, excuses about late meetings, rehearsals running over time, sudden errands that can't wait. But behind these thin excuses lies the truth that she's visiting Bill, leaning into the dangerous pull of the familiar. The first time she sees Bill after her marriage, she tells herself it will only be a conversation, closure, a chance to draw a line in the sand. But instead, the moment takes them back into a rhythm they thought was gone forever. Their conversation falters, their eyes say more than their words, and suddenly Dani leans in. She kisses Bill, a kiss that tastes of nostalgia, of regret, and of a desire neither of them wants to name. Bill is stunned, his hands frozen for a moment before instinct pulls him closer. That kiss becomes a pivot point, a secret that turns every interaction into something more dangerous. Dani leaves, but her lips remember, her heart remembers, and so does Bill. The next time, Dani knows she won't stop at a kiss. The thought lingers, whispering in her ear during her nights with Andre. She imagines the possibility of going further, of being reckless, of giving into what she wants rather than what she should. She pictures herself stepping out of a hotel room with Bill, her body trembling not from shame but from satisfaction, and she feels her mother's warnings echo in the background. Dani's mother, Anita, has seen this pattern before. Her daughter's inability to choose, her hunger for more than one man, her reckless disregard for the weight of public scrutiny. Anita's concern is not only for Dani's heart but for her career, her carefully built reputation, her standing in an industry where one mistake can ruin everything. Anita's advice is sharp and protective: annul the marriage with Andre. End it before the damage spreads. Protect your name, your career, your family from the scandal that is waiting to explode. She pleads with Dani, telling her that the whispers will grow into screams once the truth leaks out. Anita has lived long enough to know how fast a reputation can be torn apart in the glare of the spotlight. But Dani doesn't listen. Her pride, her fear, and her addiction to the tangled web she has spun with both men blinds her. She convinces herself she can balance it, that she can manage Andre while still feeding the part of her that craves Bill. But soon, she'll learn how wrong she is. Because Andre isn't naive. He isn't simply the victim of Dani's half-truths. He has his own plans, his own secrets. Beneath his calm exterior, Andre has been quietly orchestrating a reveal that will thrust their marriage into the center of public attention. He knows Dani is a public figure, a star whose every move attracts scrutiny, and he's determined to capitalize on it. He contacts people in the industry, leaks whispers of their marriage to influential voices, carefully setting the stage. He wants the world to know, and he wants the world to care. For Andre, the announcement isn't just about love, it's about legacy, attention, and control. He wants their union to be undeniable, unavoidable, a story too big to be ignored. And then, overnight, it happens. The news explodes. Headlines scream with the revelation: Danny, the adored star, has married Andre in secret. The story spreads like wildfire, lighting up every social feed, every gossip site, every news channel. Fans react with shock, some with joy, some with suspicion. The image of Danny as independent, untouchable, and focused on her art is shattered, replaced by this narrative of a whirlwind romance and sudden vows. And though Andre bathes in the attention, Danny feels the walls closing in. The truth is out, but not the whole truth. The public sees the marriage, they don't see the lies, the kisses, the longing glances at Bill. Not yet. Bill, though, is furious. He sees the announcement and feels the betrayal pierce deeper than Danny could have imagined. This wasn't just a personal choice, this was spectacle, and their children are caught in the crossfire. He can't stand the idea that Danny has turned her private life into public fodder, a circus for the world to laugh at, a scandal to whisper about in school hallways where his kids walk. He storms to her home, not to plead but to confront. His anger is raw, his voice edged with the frustration of a man who feels the ground shifting beneath him. He demands answers, demands to know why she allowed this farce to become entertainment. And when Danny opens the door, she isn't dressed for confrontation, she's dressed to seduce, whether intentionally or not. She's in clothes that leave little to the imagination, her presence as disarming as it is infuriating. Bill tries to hold firm, to stay focused on the real issue, but Danny has always known how to twist his resolve. Her laughter, her scent, the way her eyes soften when she looks at him, it's all there, pulling him in against his better judgment. The tension rises like a dangerous current, dragging them both into a space they shouldn't occupy. Bill warns himself to leave, to walk out before he does something he'll regret, but Danny is close, too close, and the past is alive between them. The possibility of being caught lingers in the air, the threat of Andre or even Haley walking in and seeing what should never be seen. The danger only fuels the heat of the moment, turning anger into desire, arguments into embraces that teeter on the edge of control. But Danny's obsession with Bill doesn't stop at stolen kisses or dangerous confrontations. It seeps into her daily life, consuming her thoughts until she begins to lose control. When Haley, Bill's current partner, confronts Danny and warns her to stay away, Danny doesn't respond with restraint. Instead, she lashes out, driven by a jealous rage she can barely contain. To Danny, Haley isn't just a rival, she's an intruder standing in the way of what she believes is hers. The confrontation escalates, words cut deep, and Danny's desperation begins to expose her in ways she doesn't realize. For Bill, the guilt after kissing Danny gnaws at him. He tries to repair things with Haley, to reassure her of his loyalty, to smooth over the cracks that Danny has deepened. He tells himself it was a mistake, that it won't happen again, but the weight of what he's done lingers. He makes gestures, small and large, to prove his commitment: dinners, conversations, promises whispered in the quiet. But Haley, carrying her own secrets, has news that shifts the balance once again. She tells Bill she isn't pregnant after all, that the delayed cycle was only that, nothing more. For Bill, it's a relief tinged with disappointment, a complex storm of emotions. He comforts Haley, assuring her that nothing changes, that he's with her regardless. But a shadow lingers over her words, because Haley isn't entirely innocent either. This isn't the first time she has used the idea of pregnancy as leverage, the first time she has hinted at a life-changing future that doesn't exist. Bill remembers, even if he doesn't speak it aloud. He wonders if she's lying again, if the truth is something else entirely. Is she protecting him from disappointment, or manipulating the moment to keep him close? The uncertainty eats at him, leaving him questioning not only his choices but the integrity of those around him. He is caught in a triangle that is bleeding into a square, each corner sharp, each edge threatening to cut him deeper. And in the midst of it all, Danny spirals further. Her lies to Andre grow more complex, her fixation on Bill intensifies, and her mother's warnings echo louder. Anita watches her daughter with dread, seeing the path she's walking toward scandal and heartbreak, unable to stop the inevitable. Andre, meanwhile, basks in the attention of the marriage reveal, blind or perhaps willfully ignorant of the chaos brewing behind closed doors. The stage is set, the players are in motion, and the choices they make in the days to come will determine whether they survive the fallout or destroy each other in the fire of their desires. The days following the leaked marriage news spiral into a storm none of them can contain. Dani wakes every morning to headlines dissecting her choices, her past, her body language at recent events. Every photo of her with Andre is magnified, every gesture between them scrutinized. The press spins theories about how long they were secretly involved, whether their marriage was genuine or staged for attention. And the more Dani tries to live normally, the more she feels the invisible weight of thousands of eyes pressing down on her. Andre revels in it, smiling for cameras, granting carefully timed interviews, posting polished photos that turn their marriage into a brand. He tells Dani this exposure is a gift, that it cements their place as a power couple. But Dani feels differently. Every time she scrolls through the endless commentary, she sees not just her name but Bill's, dragged into comparison as if the public has a right to measure one man against another. Some fans pine for the old couple, demanding to know why she ever left Bill. Others celebrate Andre as an upgrade. But all of them strip Dani of privacy, of dignity, until she feels like a product more than a person. Bill cannot stay silent. His anger burns hotter as he watches their children dragged into the spectacle. The schoolyard gossip, the veiled comments from neighbors, the pitying looks from colleagues, it all fuels his rage. He calls Dani, his voice rough with fury, demanding she think about their kids before indulging in a circus of attention. But when she answers, her tone is cool, dismissive even, as though his concerns are a nuisance compared to the demands of her new public life. That dismissal cuts deeper than any headline. It convinces Bill she's lost herself, swallowed by Andre's schemes and her own reckless desires. Yet beneath his anger lies something more dangerous, longing. No matter how hard he tries to deny it, Dani's kiss lingers in his memory. The way her lips felt against his, the way time seemed to fold back to when they were still whole-eyed, all gnaws at him. He hates himself for wanting more, for imagining her slipping into his arms again. His guilt toward Haley is a constant shadow, and the more he tries to suppress his feelings for Dani, the more powerful they become. Haley senses it. She doesn't need words or confessions to know something shifted after Dani reappeared. Bill may try to reassure her, to make amends for past mistakes, but his eyes betray him when Dani's name is mentioned. His restlessness, his silences, the way he avoids direct answers, they all speak volumes. Haley's news about not being pregnant becomes another wedge. She watches Bill's reaction carefully, relief mixed with a flicker of something unspoken, maybe disappointment, maybe mistrust. She wonders if he doubts her honesty, if he suspects she manipulated the truth again as she once did. The knowledge unsettles her, and in that insecurity, her resentment toward Dani festers into something sharper. Meanwhile, Dani's lies to Andre take on a life of their own. At first, harmless deceptions to protect both her marriage and her lingering connection with Bill. But lies multiply like weeds, and soon she can barely remember what she told Andre and what she concealed. When Andre asks where she was one night, she fabricates details without hesitation, telling herself she's buying time. But Andre isn't blind. He studies her evasions, noting the way her voice falters, the way her explanations contradict past stories. He begins to suspect, though he doesn't confront her outright. Instead, he watches, waits, letting the truth come to him. The breaking point arrives when Haley decides she can no longer sit quietly. She confronts Dani in private, her words sharp, cutting, and fueled by weeks of pent-up anger. She tells Dani to leave Bill alone, to stop haunting their lives with reckless games. But Dani, far from backing down, lashes out. Her voice rises, trembling with both guilt and defiance. She accuses Haley of never truly knowing Bill the way she does, of being a placeholder in a story that began long before she arrived. Haley fires back, refusing to let Dani rewrite the past to justify her present sins, revealing the depth of her obsession. Her need for Bill isn't about love alone, it's about validation, about reclaiming something she lost and can't bear to see in another woman's hands. Anita watches all of this unravel with the dread of a mother who predicted the storm and can do nothing to stop it. She warns Danny again, reminding her that every step closer to Bill is a step closer to destroying everything she has worked for. Anita's words are edged with desperation, but Danny shrugs them off, insisting she can manage the chaos. She tells herself she's strong enough to juggle both men, that she can keep the lies contained, that Andre will never discover the full truth. But deep down, fear gnaws at her. At night, when the cameras are gone and the house falls quiet, she stares at herself in the mirror and sees a woman unraveling. Andre finally makes his move. Having set the marriage reveal in motion, he now uses the momentum to tighten his grip on Danny. He arranges more public appearances, encourages interviews that emphasize their bond, and subtly hints at projects that rely on their joint image. He paints himself as the devoted husband, leaning into the narrative until it's nearly impossible for Danny to breathe. But underneath his smiles lies suspicion. He begins checking her phone, questioning her absences, listening too carefully to her explanations. His charm to the world hides a darker side: control, surveillance, quiet manipulation. Danny feels it closing around her, yet she can't push back without risking exposure. For Bill, the pressure becomes unbearable. He oscillates between fury and temptation, trying to protect his children while wrestling with the desire that Danny keeps igniting. One evening, unable to contain his frustration, he confronts Danny in person again. His words are sharp, demanding answers, accusing her of letting Andre turn their lives into entertainment. But as always, Danny's presence weakens his resolve. She steps closer, her eyes glistening with unspoken emotions, her voice trembling as she insists she never stopped loving him. The admission slices through his anger, leaving him torn between his duty to Haley and the pull of his past. When their lips nearly meet again, the sound of footsteps in the hall jolts them apart. The possibility of being caught by Andre, or worse, by one of their children, chills them both. But the fire between them refuses to die. Haley, aware of what's happening even without proof, begins to plot her next move. She knows she can't compete with Danny's history with Bill, but she also knows Danny is reckless, vulnerable to exposure. Haley considers whether to tell Andre what she suspects, to use his growing doubt as a weapon against Danny. She weighs the consequences carefully, the destruction it could cause, the scandal it would unleash. Yet the thought of losing Bill to Danny pushes her closer to betrayal. The tension builds like a taut wire ready to snap. Danny is trapped between two men, both watching her with suspicion, both pulling her in different directions. Andre grows more possessive, Bill more conflicted, Haley more desperate. Anita pleads with her daughter to stop before the damage becomes irreversible. But Danny has already crossed too many lines. The more she tries to control the situation, the more it slips through her fingers. And then, the inevitable explosion comes. A single moment of recklessness, a meeting with Bill in a place too public, too risky, is caught on camera. A photo surfaces online, Danny's hand brushing against Bill's, their faces too close for comfort. The image spreads faster than their marriage announcement did, sparking a media frenzy. Headlines shift from celebrating Danny and Andre's union to speculating about infidelity, about secret rendezvous, about betrayal. The perfect narrative Andre worked so hard to build shatters in an instant. Andre confronts Danny with the photo, his rage barely contained. The mask slips, revealing the fury beneath his polished exterior. He accuses her of humiliating him, of undermining everything he sacrificed to elevate their marriage. Danny tries to deny it, to explain it away as coincidence, but Andre sees through her lies. His voice rises, echoing through the walls, and for the first time Danny fears the man she married not just as a manipulator but as a threat. Bill, too, faces the consequences. Haley sees the photo and her suspicions harden into certainty. She confronts him with tears in her eyes, demanding the truth. Bill hesitates, torn between confession and denial, but his silence is answer enough. Haley's anger boils over, her words sharp and final. She tells him she won't compete with a ghost, that she won't be a placeholder while he chases after someone who broke him once already. Her departure leaves Bill hollow, but part of him knows she deserves better than the fragments he has to give. Danny's world collapses around her. Andre's fury, Haley's heartbreak, Bill's indecision, Anita's disappointment, the media's relentless dissection, everything converges into a storm she can no longer control. She stands at the center of it, the architect of her own downfall, still clinging to the impossible dream of having both men when the reality is she may end up with neither. The story is far from finished, and every choice from this point forward will determine not only who Danny ends up with but whether she can survive the scandal that threatens to consume her entirely. The photo of Danny and Bill together becomes the breaking point not only for their private lives but for the world that had been watching with ravenous fascination. Overnight, the story evolves from whispers of infidelity into a cultural spectacle. Pundits argue about loyalty, tabloids coin cruel nicknames, fans divide into hostile camps. What should have remained personal becomes a public war, and each player is pulled into the fray whether they want to be or not. Andre seethes at the betrayal. He built their marriage into a platform, believing he could shape their image into something powerful, unshakable. Now, he sees himself ridiculed, made a fool of, and that humiliation twists into vindictiveness. He tells Danny she has destroyed them, that she has taken everything they built and reduced it to ashes. His anger manifests not only in harsh words but in subtle threats, the suggestion that he could destroy her career with a single well-timed statement, that he could turn the public fully against her if he chooses. The polished charm that once drew Danny into his orbit is gone. What remains is a man determined to punish. Bill finds himself in a different kind of prison. Though he didn't orchestrate the photo, though he wasn't the one to release it, the world doesn't care about details. He becomes complicit in the scandal, his name dragged into every headline. His children are caught in the storm, confronted at school with questions they shouldn't have to answer. He tries to shield them, to reassure them, but his own guilt weighs him down. He knows the photo wasn't an accident, it was the inevitable result of his inability to walk away from Danny. And now, the cost of that weakness is being paid by everyone he loves. Haley refuses to return. For her, the photo was not simply evidence of betrayal but confirmation of what she had long suspected, that Bill never truly let go of Danny. She tells him she won't play second to a woman who thrives on chaos, that she deserves a love untainted by ghosts of the past. Her departure leaves a silence in Bill's life that feels heavier than any argument. He sees what he's lost, not just a partner but the chance at stability, at peace, at a future untouched by Danny's gravitational pull. Anita becomes the lone voice of reason in the wreckage. She pleads with Danny to step back, to recognize that she is spiraling toward complete ruin. Anita doesn't care about Andre's threats or the tabloids' cruelty. She cares about her daughter surviving this with any dignity intact. But Danny is torn. Every fiber of her being still pulls her toward Bill, toward the man who was once her anchor. Yet she knows that Bill is exhausted, weighed down by the burden of their shared past and the devastation of their present. The breaking moment arrives when Danny confronts Bill one final time. The air between them is heavy with everything unsaid. She tells him she still loves him, that she always has, that she made mistakes but none of them erase the bond they share. Her eyes are wet with desperation, her voice trembling with the weight of what she feels. Bill listens, his own emotions tearing at him, but when he speaks, his words cut deeper than anger ever could. He tells her he can't do this anymore. That love, in its rawest form, isn't enough when it poisons everything else around it. That they have become toxic not only to themselves but to everyone who touches their lives. Danny crumbles under the truth. She expected resistance, perhaps even fury, but she didn't expect finality. For Bill, it is not a rejection of their past but an acknowledgement that their story is over. He tells her he will always care for her as the mother of his children, that he will always protect their family from the worst of the storm, but he cannot be her escape anymore. His words are final, and though they're spoken with gentleness, they close a door Danny had refused to believe was locked. Andre, watching from a distance as the scandal peaks, makes his final move. He issues a statement to the press, carefully worded, framing himself as the betrayed husband but maintaining dignity. He doesn't expose Danny entirely. Instead, he positions himself as the victim of her divided heart, ensuring public sympathy leans his way. The narrative leaves Dani isolated, her reputation scarred, her career uncertain. For Andre, it is a small victory, though one that does little to heal the wound of humiliation. Haley, though absent from the immediate chaos, begins to rebuild her own life, untethered from Bill's shadow. She doesn't look back, and for the first time in months, she feels a sense of freedom. Dani, left alone, faces the silence she had been running from all along. The phones stop ringing, the headlines shift to fresher scandals, the cameras find new targets. What remains is her reflection, haunted, regretful, and broken. She finally understands what Anita tried to warn her of, what Bill tried to protect himself from, what Andre tried to manipulate, that her hunger to have everything left her with nothing. In the quiet aftermath, Bill focuses on his children, pouring his energy into being the father they need rather than the man torn between past and present. His bond with Dani shifts into something simpler, stripped of longing and seduction, co-parenting, grounded in responsibility. It isn't easy, but it's honest, and honesty is something they both owe their children more than anyone else. The ending is not explosive but somber. No grand reconciliation, no sweeping declarations of love triumphant. Instead, it is the acknowledgement of limits, of mistakes that cannot be undone, of consequences that must be lived with. Dani learns, painfully, that obsession dressed as love can destroy more than it saves. Bill learns that boundaries, however cruel they feel, are sometimes the only way to preserve what matters most. Andre learns that control can only mask betrayal for so long. And Haley learns that walking away can sometimes be the most powerful choice of all. The gates that once seemed open to Dani, gates to a new marriage, a rekindled romance, a life of endless desire, are now closed. What lies beyond them is not a future of her choosing but the hard reality of survival, of rebuilding, of learning to live with the wreckage she created. It is not the ending she dreamed of, but it is the ending she earned.